I read story after story about cheating wives and even cheating husbands. I know that everyone is different and reacts differently to their spouse cheating on them. In most relationships, I would expect the husband to lose his temper and do something about it if he catches the man in bed with his woman. I just read a few stories, and in every one of them, the husband comes home early and discovers an unfamiliar car in the driveway. In most of them, he walks quietly through his own home and hears sounds coming from his master bedroom. He walks to the door, which is usually ajar so he can peek inside the room. On his marital bed, he sees his wife being had, and she screams, demanding more. Now, please understand that I am not attacking any writers or authors. I'm telling these stupid fucking wimps who are boyfriends and husbands. They watch their wives being had, and they feel sick to their stomachs. They are in an overwhelming situation, not knowing what to do, so they slowly leave the room, sneak back out of their own house, and go to a bar to do some more thinking while drinking a pint of Jim Beam. Later, they come home and act like nothing happened, and later try to plan some revenge. Is that what real men do? I say, bullshit for you horn-pointing weaklings, you sons of bitches, you sweet-sounding bastards who let other men take advantage of your wife while you stand back and watch. You don't want to ruin your sweet little marriage, and you may have to face the truth. To all of you so-called caring husbands and boyfriends, I say, fuck you. It happened to me, and I'll tell you what I did. Mandy and I were married for 11 years. We had 2 children, Trevor, who was 10 years old, and Jasmine, who was 8. I always thought we had a good marriage. Like most marriages, we made love all the time in the early years. We had a pretty full personal life. Missionary position, from behind, and even bought one of those Chinese books about 1,000 ways to have sex. About 6 of them were pretty good. The rest, the Chinese could take back. She always met me step for step. I have to say she was good, and her favorite position was riding on top. I liked that too when I got tired. She would climb on top of me and ride me like a fucking bronco. I know I sound like an asshole, but I wasn't always like this. I carry a lot of resentment, and I do. I need to get over it, but it's not easy. Like a lot of young people, we were up to our eyeballs in debt. It was our own fault. We wanted what our parents had, but we wanted it now. It took our parents 30 years to get their belongings together. It wasn't just Mandy spending money. I wanted new toys for myself, too. All new appliances and a big screen TV, to name just a few. Anyway, we got into debt. I was already working at the factory 6 days a week. We were getting checks to share in the profits, but because of the economy, they seemed to have gotten a lot smaller. Anyway, Mandy said she could go to work. I felt guilty about not being able to support my family, but it was the only way to get out of our debt. Mandy got a job at one of the local department stores. She didn't make much money, but she was able to work around the kids' schedule. Of course, that meant I didn't see her very often. At least not as often as I would have liked. The days we made love were fewer and farther apart. Mandy said that because of the kids and work, she just wasn't in the mood. I could understand that. There were days when I wasn't ready for it either. We had always argued about money before, but now it was about taking care of the house. She told me I needed to do more. She was probably right, and I tried. But then it turned out that I couldn't do things well enough or wasn't doing them the way she wanted. You have to understand that I didn't mind doing something, but if I had to do it, it was my way. One argument after another led to the withholding of sex. I think this was my punishment for not doing things the way she wanted. I started going to the bar while she was working. I was just angry and tired of being alone. The kids always went to their grandparents because Mandy's parents had a pool. We couldn't afford it. I met a few women at the bar, but I didn't do anything but talk to them. I did buy them a few drinks. It came to Mandy's attention that I was hanging around the bar. She was really pissed and told me that if I was going to screw some slut, she could do the same. I told her that wasn't true, and whoever told her I was cheating on her was a fucking liar. She didn't tell me who it was. She just went to bed and locked herself away from me. I thought about breaking the door down, but then I'd have to fix it. I figured she'd get over it, so I slept on the couch. We didn't get along at all then. We argued about nothing. We didn't talk anymore. We both threatened each other with divorce over nothing. The kids were spending more and more time with Mandy's parents. I think they hated seeing us argue, and it hurt them too. On Friday, I told Mandy that I was taking Saturday off and going fishing. I needed to get my thoughts together. Mandy said, "We need money and you're taking the day off. What the hell is wrong with you?" That was another argument. Mandy accused me of taking one girl from the bar with me. I didn't know where she got that information from, but she wouldn't tell me. It wasn't true, although I admit that over the last few weeks one of them kept hitting on me. I liked the attention, but I didn't do anything to her. I did talk to her quite lewdly, but honestly never touched her. One day she reached out and grabbed me. It actually felt good, but I put my hand on top and took her hand away. I told her that Mandy and I had problems in our marriage, but I wouldn't cheat on her. Saturday I got up, grabbed my fishing gear, and went for a walk. I was gone for about 4 hours when I think I finally came to my senses. Sometimes you need to be alone in the wilderness to clear your mind. That's what fishing did for me. I realized how stupid Mandy and I had been. Instead of talking with a clear head, we were both arguing, and neither of us was conceding an inch. I decided to go home so the two of us could sit down like adults and work through our problems. When I got home, there was a strange car in the driveway of my house. I immediately thought of those fucking stories and how the wussies reacted. I quietly walked into my house and listened for any sounds. I heard Mandy say, "Ralph, this isn't right, even if Clyde is cheating on me." I looked into the room and saw that Ralph had his hand on Mandy's breasts. Her blouse was unbuttoned and her bra was pulled up above her breasts. I walked into the room. "Oh my God, Clyde, what are you doing home?" "It's not what you think," Mandy said. God, what a stupid phrase. We were both smarter than that. I grabbed Ralph's arm and pulled him off the couch. The zipper on his pants was undone. I picked him up and punched him hard in the stomach. I hit him with a right cross to the jaw. I think I may have dislocated his jaw. I threw him across the living room, knocking over a table and a lamp. I jumped on him and punched him over and over. I stood up and kicked him in the balls. All the while, Mandy was screaming and crying, demanding that I stop. I picked up the bleeding, nearly lifeless piece of shit and threw him out the door onto my lawn. "You fucking whore, get out of my house!" I grabbed her and she screamed as I threw her out the front door, her breasts still sticking out. I slammed the door shut and locked it shut. I heard Mandy outside yelling for me to let her in. She needed to talk to me and call an ambulance for Ralph. I did neither, but about 5 minutes later a patrol car and an ambulance pulled up. They told me to open the door or they would break it down. I opened it and they rushed in. They told me to lie face down on the floor with my legs spread. One officer put his knee in my back and handcuffed me. The ambulance was already taking Ralph unconscious to the hospital. Mandy tidied up her clothes and put her breasts back in her bra back where they belonged. They talked to Mandy and took her statement. I didn't say a word. They read me my rights and I refused to talk. They put me in a patrol car and took me to jail. Mandy called the jail and even drove there. I told the officers running the facility that I didn't want to talk to her. It was one of the few rights I had left. An officer, a nice guy named Joe, came up to my holding cell to talk to me. "Off the record, Clyde, what the hell happened?" "Communication, or lack thereof," I replied. "My wife was getting ready to sleep with a guy on my couch. I'm not a fucking wuss, so I took matters into my own hands." "Did you hear her side of the story, Clyde?" he asked. "Joe, let me make it very simple. No one forced her to do it. She was going to do it of her own free will. What kind of man would I be if I took that kind of shit? I did what I had to do. Now I guess I'm going to have to pay for it," I said. I refused to even try to bail them out. I told them I wasn't going to waste money my family could use, so I might as well just go home in this situation. They were going to hire me one of those lawyers that the state provides. I was fine with that. He would be gone for at least a day or so. Either way, I needed time to cool off. Joe came back with a letter from Mandy. I immediately told him I didn't even want to read it. When I finally saw my lawyer, he told me I was in a heap of trouble. He wanted me to plead insanity. I laughed and told him that I knew exactly what I was doing, and if that asshole ever came near Mandy again, he'd get a repeat performance. I actually asked him if I had killed the bastard. "Damn close," my lawyer said. "Broken jaw, 2 ribs, 2 black eyes, and God knows what else. The police couldn't even take his statement about what happened. He was in no condition to speak. All they have is your wife's statement right now. I'm going to visit her myself tomorrow. Is there anything you'd like me to say to her?" "Yes, I would. Tell her she's free to sleep with whoever she wants now, and I want a divorce," I said. "I just became a very stubborn asshole. You had to be a hard ass in prison. I didn't even talk to Mandy. I refused to see her. I did get a few messages from my kids saying they missed me and wanted me to come home. Like I could just say, okay, I guess I'll go home tonight." It had been 2 months since the beating, and my trial was about to begin. At least some sort of pre-trial proceedings. The only witnesses were Mandy and this guy Ralph, who I found out worked where Mandy worked. I was sitting in the courtroom when they wheeled Ralph in a wheelchair. I think he broke his leg when I threw him out the door. His jaw was still bandaged, but the bruises were almost healed. My lawyer whispered to me that they had to surgically remove his testicles. They were tamped too far into his scrotum. He would not be able to have children. He was married, but his wife was divorcing him because of this fiasco. He wrote most of his statements as he was hard to understand because of the brace on his jaw. I looked back at the courtroom door and saw Mandy standing there. I felt anger and hurt when I saw her. She had been forced to appear at the hearing as a reluctant witness. They said she didn't have to testify against me, but she had to give her testimony about what happened. Well, I guess I had to hear it after all. Ralph was called first. He basically said or wrote that Mandy had invited him to visit, and they were getting intimate when I burst into the room and started beating him before he could even defend himself. He said he and Mandy were two consenting adults. He told the judge that I never gave anyone a chance to explain anything. I had only viciously attacked him. I felt like standing up and slapping him again. I would if I thought I could get close to him. Mandy threw him a very angry look and cried when she looked at me. Mandy was called to testify. She told the judge that she worked with Ralph. He had been hitting on her quite often, and she had always rejected his advances. Recently, he told her that her husband was cheating on her. She refused to believe it, and even told Ralph that she had talked to me about it. Then one day, Ralph came in with pictures that showed some slut with her hand on my bottom. Now I realized where I had seen Ralph before. He used to hang around outside Jake's bar where I was having a drink. He always kept his distance and never spoke to me. The bastard was taking pictures to use against me. Mandy then said, "I was all shaken up after I found out Clyde was cheating on me. Ralph told me I should get even with him and do the same thing he was doing. I was confused. I love Clyde, but when we are angry, we do stupid things. I told Ralph about Clyde going fishing, and he told me that he overheard Clyde asking the bar whore to go with him. I was hurt, and maybe I even wanted to get even. I don't know. I was so embarrassed. That horrible Saturday, Clyde left and didn't even kiss me goodbye. The kids got up and asked to go to my mom's house for the day. That left me alone in the house thinking about what Clyde was doing. Then Ralph showed up at my door. I asked him what he was doing there, and he told me that he thought I could use some company since my husband was cheating on me. That son of a bitch set us up. I really hope the judge saw that. Of course, Mandy let him in, and seeing him in a wheelchair wouldn't have done me much good." Mandy continued, "Ralph came in and I poured him a cup of coffee. We started talking about what Clyde was probably doing right now, and Ralph started flirting with me. He started undoing the buttons on my blouse and pulled my bra down over my breasts. I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't want this man. I wanted my Clyde, but I sat there and let him touch me. I watched as he leaned over, unzipped his pants, and I remember telling him that it was wrong, even if Clyde was really cheating on me. The next thing I remember was Clyde walking in and grabbing Ralph's hand. I was afraid that Clyde would kill him and I would be sent away. I know I yelled at Clyde to stop, but he was like a madman. He threw Ralph out the door and then called me a whore and a slut and pushed me out too. A few minutes later, the police arrived with an ambulance. Mandy was testifying in court in tears. I tried to contact Clyde and talk to him, but he refused to see me. I was so stupid, so stupid. She got off the stand and looked at me in tears. I had such mixed emotions. According to her, they had never done this before, and there was a good chance she wouldn't have gone for it. I knew she was hurting, but there was nothing I could do but watch. This asshole had ruined our lives. When I made my statement, I made the mistake of saying I would do it again. At the end of the whole trial, I was charged with assault and battery. The judge said that even though it happened in my home, Ralph was considered a guest. I could have asked him to leave, but legally I couldn't beat him to a pulp. The judge gave me 4 years. Mandy left the courtroom in tears. I never spoke to her. One day, sitting in my cell, I decided to write to her. I had something to say, and I had to get it off my chest. Dear Mandy, I do love you and always have. I have never cheated on you. If you go to the bar and ask Sue, I'm sure she will tell you the truth. I'll have my lawyer send you the divorce papers. You're too beautiful a woman to be alone. We made some serious mistakes that I will always regret. If we had communicated more, this might not have happened. I wish I should have, but now it's too late. Tell Trevor and Jasmine I love them. It's a shame their father's a criminal. I just couldn't stand by and let it happen. I'm not that kind of person. My only regret now is that you didn't believe me and decided to get revenge instead of talking to me. I hope you can find someone. Please forget about me and go on with your life. You should be getting your divorce papers any day now. Always loving you, Clyde. I sent off the divorce papers and gave all our possessions to Mandy. Where I was living now, I didn't need anything. I was even given food and underwear. All I could do now was waste my time. I had no real skills other than working as a laborer, so I started trying to better myself by enrolling in rehab programs. At least when I got out, I could probably get a job. I was put into a welding program. I had done a little welding at my old job, but now I could become a master welder and maybe build a future when I got out. Every night I thought about my family, my kids without a father, and Mandy living without me. Life really did suck. About 2 months went by, and the cell duty officer said I had a visitor. I figured it was a lawyer with my divorce papers. There were 2 types of visitation centers in this prison. Those with glass between them where you talk on the phone, and others where you sit at a table and talk face to face. There was minimal touching in this visitation area. This was the one I was sent to. Waiting for me at the table was Mandy. She looked up, looked at me, and cried. "Hey, Mandy, what brings you here?" I asked. "I don't want a divorce. I'll wait for you as long as it takes. I don't want anyone but you. I made a terrible mistake not believing you. It'll never happen again. I know you may not believe me, but I don't think I'd go any farther than I did. I felt so guilty. I was almost glad when you walked in. Now our lives are a mess because of what we both did. I take half the blame for being so stupid for not trusting you. I did meet this woman, Sue, and she told me that she really cared for you and tried to be affectionate, but you told her you were happily married and wouldn't cheat on me. I told her about Ralph and the pictures, and she got really mad. In fact, she said she had to kill the bastard. How are the kids doing? Are they all right?" I asked. "They are doing as well as could be expected. I couldn't afford the house, so we're selling it. We moved in with Mom and Dad for a while until we can get back on our feet. We are closing on the house next week. I put all of our furniture and your personal belongings in storage. When you get out, we can start over." She started crying. "I'm so sorry. I miss you so much. I can't live without you. I love you, Clyde. I miss you too, but you need to get on with your life. I can't expect you to wait for me for another 3 years or so," I replied. "I told you I'm not going to get a divorce. I'm waiting for you. If you want a divorce when you get out, then I will sign the papers, but not before," she replied. We talked some more, and then I asked the officer's permission to kiss her goodbye. She kissed me very tenderly, and tears ran down her face. She told me that she would come there every month to see me. I told her not to come every month. It would be too painful every time she left. She agreed to come about once every 3 months. Prison life continued. About once a month I would get letters from my children telling me what they were doing, and sometimes they would send a picture. I have one picture of them with their smiling mother. It was the same one I hung on my camera wall. I was pretty successful in mastering the welding technique. The instructor told me he would give me a job reference when I got out. Mandy stopped by to see me every 3 months. She said everything was fine. She changed jobs and worked at another department store where she was a department manager with a slightly higher salary. Her parents let her save most of the money so she could eventually get back on her feet. I asked her what her parents now thought of me, a criminal. "Mom and Dad love you, Clyde. They know you did it because of your temper. They were really mad at me for being so stupid. They told me I was losing a good husband because of my lack of communication. In fact, when the divorce papers came and they saw them, they asked me what I was going to do. When I tore them up in front of them, they smiled. Another 6 months went by and they told me I had another visitor. They wanted to see me at the glass display case, not at the tables. I had no idea who might have wanted to see me. I walked over to the window. Ralph was there holding the telephone receiver. "What do you want, you son of a bitch?" I asked. "I just thought I should let you know I'm going to follow through," he said. "What the hell are you talking about, asshole?" I said. "Your wife's sex work. That's what I set out to do, and now I'm going to finish the job. You know we're dating, don't you?" he said. "You lying bastard. When I get out of here, I'm going to finish this job. I'm going to nail your fucking ass." I was really pissed, but I couldn't help it. "All right, maybe I'll even take pictures of having your wife and send them to you. You can hang them in your cell," he laughed. "I'll find you and kill you, you son of a bitch," I stated. He laughed. "I won't be here by then. See you, Clyde." He hung up the phone and walked away. Damn it, things were going pretty well, and now the bastard was back. I was pretty sure Mandy wasn't seeing him, but I needed to call her and warn her. I finally got to the phone. I could only make calls for a fee. I hoped they would accept that. Trevor picked up the phone and answered yes to the call. "Dad! Hey, Dad! How are you doing? Boy, it's good to hear your voice." "I really miss you, Dad." "I miss you too, Trevor, but right now I gotta talk to my mom. It only takes me a few minutes per call." "Is she there?" He said, Yes, she's here. Mom, Dad needs you at the phone. I heard her scream. What? In the background. Clyde, is that you? What's the matter, honey? She asked. She knew I wouldn't have called unless it was urgent. Have you talked to Ralph lately? I asked. No, of course not. I can't stand the bastard after what he did to us. What's the matter, Clyde? She asked. He showed up here a while ago and said that you two were dating. It's a lie, Clyde, a damn lie. You have to believe me, she said. I do believe you, Mandy, but I know he's coming for you somehow. I need you to protect yourself and watch that bastard. I don't know what to do next, but I'm warning you. He's going to try to get even by sleeping with you, I said. I'd rather die than let that asshole near me. Honey, I'll be fine. You taught me how to take care of myself. It's no use calling the police because they don't react until something happens. Just be careful. I have to hang up now. I love you, Mandy. It was all I could do. I didn't want to make any more fuss without proof. I didn't sleep well for a few days. About a week later, another customer came to my tables. Clyde, I'm Lieutenant Abrams, and this is Officer Ryan. We're from the sheriff's office. Well, Lieutenant, what do you want from me? I asked. About 3 days ago, as far as we could tell, Ralph Medley was shot and killed outside the bar you were visiting. Is there anything you can tell us about that? Do you also own a gun? Lieutenant, I spent 2.5 years here because of that asshole. I could hardly shoot him from here, and no, I don't have a gun. Mandy wouldn't let a gun in the house. According to the visitor log, he was here last week. What did he want? He came to make fun of me, saying I was locked up and he was free as a bird. I think it was to sprinkle salt on the wounds, so to speak, I replied. Any idea who might have had a grudge against him? He asked. Look, guys, I don't give a damn about him. He's dead. Good riddance to the wretched scum. What do I care? Hell no. Whoever the hell did it, I hope they get away with it. Though I heard his ex wasn't too happy with him, I replied. What about your wife? What's her name? Mandy? She might be interested in seeing him dead, the lieutenant said. Mandy doesn't have the temperament to do something so disgusting. Hell, she wanted me to call an ambulance when I beat the crap out of him. You're in the wrong place if you're watching Mandy. She's got 2 kids she has to support on her income, and now she lives with her parents. She doesn't have time to wipe her ass, let alone shoot someone, I laughed. Well, Clyde, thanks for at least talking to us, he said. Hey, were you going to tell me what you know about the shooting? Hell, officer, I told you everything I know. Fair enough. Ralph walked into Jake's bar around 7 o'clock. He sat idly drinking and met a sexily dressed blonde in the doorway. She never went inside, so the people in the bar couldn't get a proper look at her face. They circled the parking lot, and the next thing the customers heard were gunshots, 2 of them. By the time they got outside, Ralph was dead from 2 Luger shots to the face. The woman was gone. We think it might have been her, but we don't have any proof of that, except that she must have been the last person with him before he was shot. I'm sorry, I can't help you, but he probably got what he deserved, I said. I wanted to call Mandy and tell her that she had nothing more to worry about. I was afraid someone might listen to my phone call, so I just kept quiet. The shooting was reported in the papers, and it said they had no real suspects. They did mention my name since I beat the crap out of him, but they knew where I was at the time. The next week, it was time for Mandy to visit me again. I was so happy to see her. She asked me if I had heard about Ralph. I told her about the police coming and talking to me. She told me that they had talked to her, too. She told them that depending on the exact time of day she was working or coming home from work. Her parents vouched for her arrival time. I asked her if they had asked her if we had guns. Yes, they did ask me. I told them I don't allow guns in the house, just like you told me to tell people if they ever asked when you bought them years ago. Where's my Luger? The one we bought a few years ago from that crazy street vendor? I asked. Probably in storage with the rest of your stuff, she replied. The important thing is that you're safe. That's all that matters. Being in this prison has given me a lot to think about. When I get out, do you think we can put all this behind us and start over? I asked. She smiled at me and said, I know we can. No more secrets and a lot more communication. I love you, Clyde. I always have and always will. A couple months later, I was called into the warden's office. He told me that I would be released early. It would be in about 2 weeks. I couldn't have been happier. I called Mandy. Honey, can you come and pick me up in about 2 weeks? I asked. You mean come and see you? Yes, I can, she replied. No, not come and see me, but come and get me. I'm on parole, I smiled. I heard Mandy start to cry. Oh my God, oh my God. When? What day? What time? Oh my God, Clyde, I'm so happy. She was still crying. 2 weeks later, I was released. Mandy came and picked me up. She had a different car. She said the old one was out of order. She looked beautiful when she came up to me and kissed me. She was crying and I had tears in my eyes. We headed over to her parents' house and they had a sign out. "Welcome home, Daddy!" The kids must have done it. My kids looked so grown up when I hugged and kissed them. Other than their pictures, I hadn't seen them in 3 years. My mother-in-law came over and gave me a hug, and I shook my father-in-law's hand. I carried my suitcase into the house and was greeted by several of our old friends. I wouldn't let Mandy go far from me. "Honey, where do you want me to sleep?" I asked Mandy. "In our bed, silly. We moved it downstairs a couple days ago so you and I could have some privacy. It was Daddy's idea, but tonight you and I are going to a motel. I booked a room. I have 3 years of contained love that I've been saving for you. God, I've missed you so much," she said. After everyone had almost left the party and I said goodnight to my kids, Mandy said we'd see everyone tomorrow. It was pretty funny if you think about it. Everyone knew where we were going and what we were going to do. I looked in our closet to see if I had any clothes in there. I opened one drawer and there was a blonde wig in there. Mandy came in and saw me looking at it. "I bought it and wore it once. I think I look better as a brunette," she smiled. She pointed to a couple drawers where she had put some of my clothes. I pulled out a fresh change of clothes and some other change to take with me to the motel. We headed for the exit and talked about our future. We both agreed that if either of us had a problem, we would face it head on. No more secrets and lots of socializing. When we got to the motel, we decided to have a drink together. She was sitting at a table looking pretty, so I walked over to get us drinks. When I turned around, there was some guy sitting next to Mandy. I could hear their conversation from where I was waiting for our drinks. "Hey, babe, are you here all alone?" he asked. "Please go away. I'm married and waiting for my husband to return. I'm asking you nicely, but he won't do it," Mandy said. "Damn, baby, why would I be afraid of your old man?" he asked. "Clyde, honey, please come here," she asked. The man looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, ladies and sir, I made a mistake. I mistook you for someone else," and ran out the front door. I looked at a laughing Mandy. "What the hell did that all mean?" "You'd have thought he'd seen a ghost," I asked. "Honey, you're very well known in this part of town. You're somewhat of a legend. Almost every man who approached me only had to tell them I was married to Clyde O'Brien and they'd leave me alone. Most people still think you're also responsible for Ralph's death," she replied. We went up to our room and Mandy asked me how I wanted to do it. I told her that I wanted fast and furious sex the first time to get rid of the tension. Then we were going to make slow, intimate love. She undressed as I took off my clothes as well. She climbed onto the bed and I followed her. She looked at me and said, "Damn it, honey. I needed this as much as you did. Let me get up and go to the bathroom and clean this place up so we can really love each other. I've missed you so much." She got off the bed with her hands between her legs, not wanting to make a mess on the way to the bathroom. I poured each of us a cup when I heard the sound of water running in the shower. I set them aside and went into the shower with her. When she came out wrapped in a towel, I handed her a drink. "A toast to the woman I love. May we always be together." We both took a sip, and I pulled the towel off her and sat her on the edge of the bed. A satisfied smile froze on her face. "I love you so much, Clyde. I think that might have been enough for the first 6 months," she said. "That still leaves us with 2.5 years to spare," I smiled back. Epilogue. In the weeks that followed, I found a job as a welder for a large firm. The man who hired me told me that they give a lot of second chances if the employees are good workers, show up on time, and don't do drugs. He also told me that I came highly recommended. He never said by whom. After a few months, we were able to rent our own house. We had a lease with an option to buy. It was also in the same neighborhood as Mandy's parents. We were going to be a family again. We walked up to the warehouse building, and there stood Lieutenant Abrams and Officer Ryan with 2 other officers who had a warrant to search the warehouse building. I knew they were looking for a Luger. As they went through the boxes, I tried to get Mandy's attention. At this point, they separated us. One officer came out with a Luger in his hand. He put it in a plastic bag and handed it to the lieutenant. The lieutenant walked up to Mandy and said, "I thought you didn't allow guns in your house, Mrs. O'Brien." Mandy looked at him and said the warehouse building was not her home. O'Brien: "Well, young lady, I suggest you don't go too far from the house until we test that Luger." The police left and I went to Mandy's. "I thought you'd gotten rid of that gun by now. God, Mandy, what are we going to do now?" "Do?" Mandy asked. "Do what? Oh my God, you think I killed Ralph?" "I didn't do it, Clyde. I don't know who did it, but it wasn't me. I didn't think about the gun until you reminded me. The next day, the lieutenant came to our new house and even returned the Luger. He said the serial number had been wiped off and it didn't even have a striker. If it wasn't, it would have been illegal to own it. As it was completely useless and probably hadn't been fired in years. Mandy had told him to keep it or throw it away. She didn't allow firearms in her house. She even wondered how it had gotten into the storage building. Perhaps it had belonged to one of the movers. All she knew was that it wasn't hers. After this strange situation, our lives have largely returned to normal. The main thing I learned was to always communicate better with Mandy. She realized that it all started because she didn't trust me. I could still divorce her, but we would both have lost a lot of time. Our sex life is as good as it was when we first got married. The only thing she knows is that I won't cheat on her, and she knows what would happen if she cheated on me. It's funny when we go out with friends. They always ask me if they can dance with Mandy. I think I'm going to be a legend in our little town for a while. About a month ago, we got a call from the lieutenant. He said we were no longer under surveillance because of Ralph's murder. It was Sue, the woman from the bar. Ralph turned her on, and she let him fuck her. Apparently, she was a psycho bitch, a black widow. She had sex with men and then killed them when she was done with them. The police were investigating a case of a cheating wife and went to a bar to talk to the husband. It was there that the man was with Sue. They talked to her and asked to look in her car. In the trunk, they found a blonde wig and a Luger. She confessed to them to shooting Ralph and 3 other unsolved murders. All of them were husbands who cheated on their wives. The first murder was in Atlanta, where her husband was found murdered behind a local bar. That got me thinking that if I had cheated on Mandy, I might be lying in an alley right now.